Welcome back to How to Make Climate Change Sexy, the podcast where I dive into conversations with guests who are using culture and innovation to address the climate crisis. Together, we'll explore how their creative approaches can become powerful tools for driving the change our planet needs. It's a pleasure to be sitting down with Siobhan Bailey-Turner today. Siobhan leads celebrity relations at WWF UK. She is dedicated to using the power of celebrity influence to bring climate and nature issues to a broader audience, making these critical topics more relatable and engaging. In this episode, we'll discuss her journey from the entertainment world to WWF and the unique role of celebrities in raising awareness. Siobhan shares insights on humanising climate messaging and how WWF leverages storytelling to reach new audiences. I think you're going to love this episode. Let's jump in. Hi Siobhan, welcome to the podcast. For people who don't know who you are, can you tell the listeners how you make the climate crisis sexy?
Hey Izzy, just want to say thanks firstly for having me on this podcast. Super excited. I feel quite honoured, to be honest, to be asked by the queen of sexy climate communication and possibly the queen of memes. I don't know how many memes I receive from you on a day-to-day basis, but I appreciate it. So I work at WWF UK as the lead celebrity relations manager. And that involves leveraging the power of celebrities' influence to bring attention to critical nature and climate issues. And by collaborating with these well-known personalities and celebrities, we aim to make the climate and nature crisis more relatable and ultimately engage a broader audience. You know, it's not the typical job you think about when you think about the climate and nature sector. But, you know, I've been in this job for 3 years now and I'm absolutely loving it. And I think it's important to find creative and entertaining and I suppose sexy ways to present environmental issues and make them compelling and urgent for fans and followers. And through storytelling and through celebrities, it's key for us to reach our target audiences and communicate that messaging.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. You saying that it's a non-typical career. It's not something that people associate with the environment. I think that's something that I really want to highlight on here, is to show that actually you can use your skill sets in various different avenues. Like, it's not all, I'm always bashing hiking, but it's not all like being a hiking guide. You can really take what you love and use that in the service of climate. So I'm assuming that you had a role in the entertainment industry beforehand. What motivated you to transition from your background in the entertainment industry into your role at WWF?
Yeah, so my first job was at Premier Model Management when I was 17, and I gained an internship there. But on the back of doing that internship with the VIP and PR team, I was quickly offered a position within the agency. I came from like a very typical working class countryside background, and if you ever watched This Country, that always reminds me of home, I think. But I didn't have any contacts in industry, and I knew if I was to make it and do well in the entertainment industry, I had to kind of throw myself in the deep end. And, you know, I remember Izzy working 7 days a week, basically for a year of my life, just to get by in London in terms of the rent, living, enjoying life. And so I worked across the sector. But throughout the time, I was predominantly in the fashion industry, connecting celebrities and influencers to brands. So I worked with brands like the British Fashion Council, Kenzo, Roger Vivier, Represent, Mulberry, Selfridges, just to name a few. And, you know, I loved my job in fashion, and there was no denying that the opportunities, the creativity, the people, and the parties were just amazing. But I wanted to use my knowledge kind of for the greater good. And I felt a sort of, I suppose it was a pressure on myself, as while the industry, you know, the fashion industry is amazing and it's celebrated for creativity and innovation, it does carry a weighty responsibility in the fight against climate change. And I always had a growing concern of our planet, and the headlines at that stage that were coming through on the news, they were just really shocking to me and making me really, really upset. And so I always had like this desire to use my skills for the greater good for an environmental or humanitarian NGO. And, you know, I suppose I'm a nature girl at heart as well. I grew up in the Warwickshire countryside. So nature had always been like a kind of a vital, massive thing in my life. And when the opportunity came up at WWF, it was a no-brainer for me. Celebrities and nature, I was kind of winning in terms of that. And my career background in the entertainment industry has really provided me with a deep understanding of celebrities, media, storytelling, and audience engagement, but also relationships, it's crucial in my role to think about growing and developing these relationships and meeting celebrities at the stage they're at on their climate and nature journey. Understanding what they need, what they want to do and represent is so important. We're all very different as well. So these girls, don't want to big myself up in any way, but they have been invaluable at WWF, where we need to communicate these really complex environmental issues in an accessible, impactful way.
You've touched on that, especially talking about influencers, because obviously WWF has worked with celebrities for decades. How do you think social media shapes the importance of the organisation working with celebrities and influencers? Like, can you explain the importance of celebrity and influencer involvement in climate crisis communication? Like, what does it add beyond just doing billboards and traditional TV adverts?
Yeah, celebrities and influencers, they play a crucial role in climate and nature crisis communication and awareness due to their reach and influence at the end of the day. You know, their involvement can drive significant action and attention to really urgent issues. So if we have an emergency campaign, for example, about the Amazon fires that comes out and a celebrity or an influencer helps spread awareness of that, they bring a vast amount of dedicated fans that closely follow their actions and their opinions. So when they speak out about climate and the nature crisis, they can reach millions of people who might not be engaged with these issues already. And I think with celebrities and influencers, the real power which they have is humanizing the climate and nature crisis. When you see the big headlines and the science, it's so daunting and it's complicated. And I'm no scientist, and I work for WWF, but I don't understand a lot of the, what they're talking about underneath it. But I understand the top level kind of easy answers, but it can be abstract to many people, especially people in the UK who maybe don't see the impacts of climate change as much as people in the global south. And, celebrities and influencers sharing personal stories and experiences of these issues makes the crisis more relatable, but also more urgent, and hopefully will connect with people on a deeper level. But on the fact of like traditional media channels, I think it's the best of both worlds, in my opinion. If we have somebody sat on a sofa like GMB or The One Show, and then them posting on social media, as we're reaching a broader and more diverse set of individuals who trust them. And trust is a huge thing. And WWF is one of the most trusted environmental charities in the world. That panda logo, if you stick that panda logo on anything, everybody knows what it's for and what it represents. And people trust celebrities they love, and they bring a credibility to particularly WWF campaigns, but any NGOs campaigns. And those call to actions and those fundraisers which are associated with, we have a chance to change public behaviour and attitudes towards climate change. And I suppose I just want to reflect as well about how this can affect the individual, because a lot of people, particularly, in the charity sector, my colleagues would be like, oh, we could get this celebrity on board. But it's quite daunting for celebrities to get involved with this sector because they're always worried about being called a hypocrite. And, I think we're all hypocrites in terms of the space. None of us are perfect. And at the end of the day, if somebody's trying to do their bit and spread awareness of this, absolutely amazing. I think it was an XR campaign. I don't know what year it was, maybe just before COVID, but they did an amazing job. And it was an open letter from a group of celebrities. I think it included Jude Law and Emma Thompson and a load of celebrities who were all basically saying they call themselves hypocrites because of living this high carbon lifestyle and the industries they are involved with. But they said, like us, the general public are stuck in a fossil fuel economy at the moment. And without change, we'll keep causing it. And that was such an amazing campaign for the people to go, okay, right, we're in this together. At the end of the day, we're in this together. And celebrities just have such a unique voice in terms of that. And influencers as well. They have celebrities and influencers. To be honest, Izzy, I would say influencers are celebrities as such now, because you look at the big influencers on social media channels, they're celebrities. A lot of our generation know who they are. Maybe not our parents' generation, but it's working with different people to advocate those messages, to connect to those different audiences. We want to reach every sector in society, and we can do that through, WWF has a different audience to Greenpeace. Greenpeace have a different audience to RSPB. RSPB have a different audience to National Trust. We all have our place in the environmental NGO sector to make a difference and to work with different people who will connect with our audiences.
I think that's really interesting, especially when you talk about the humanization of climate news, because I think there's only so many times you can see this is the hottest day on record before you tune out to it. Like, it's so scary to engage with it. Like, if scientific stats were going to work, they would have worked by now, and they obviously haven't. So it's interesting to see this different route, and also, like you said, breaking echo chambers and really niching down into different audience sectors that maybe haven't been spoken to about nature before. Do you have any examples of how celebrities and influencers have made a tangible difference in raising awareness or driving action on climate issues?
Yeah, I've got loads, but I think I'm going to big up my own podcast now. Now, it's not my podcast. I'm not the host. I'm not taking all the credit there, but you know, our Call of the Wild podcast, which is hosted by Cal Spellman, is our baby. And in the podcast, in each episode, he sits down with top wildlife and climate experts and celebrity guests, you know, including Sir David Attenborough and Ellie Goulding and Fern Cotton, Jada G, and more, to explore the threats we're facing and what people can actually do about it. And the viewers of that are currently mainly under 30. So we know young people are looking for solutions to huge problems and how to navigate this very, very confusing world with these negative headlines. And, you know, each episode has a different topic. And sometimes these are topics that are not widely spoken about, particularly at WWF, but they are talked about in communities, particularly young communities. So, for example, one episode we looked at our identity and how our sense of identity influences our relationship with nature. So that looked at working class backgrounds, that looked at LGBTQ plus communities, that looked at religious backgrounds as well. And, you know, included how we get empowered and how we feel about the positive change for the environment, you know. And the podcast is a great way to learn and explore new subjects in a relatable way. You know, hearing from your favorite celebrities talking about complex issues makes it so relatable. But it's also an opportunity for us as an organisation to look at all the environmental impacts and how we can change it from negative to positive. WWF is very, very good at looking at the positive and the solutions. And we know that more people react and engage with us on the positive news stories and the negative news stories. And, you know, we know that 67% are 34 and under. When we release a podcast, we're in the top 100 global podcasts in the chart. And we've been able to equip listeners with ways to spread awareness and empower change. And it's weird, to be honest. Like, I've seen it firsthand with people when they find out about the podcast, and I'm part of the team who books the talent, who say they've gone and signed our petition because they've heard it on the podcast, or they've written to their local MP asking for change, or they've become more plant-based in their diet. And one time somebody came up to me, and I think it was after the Fern Cotton episode, and we was looking at mental health and nature, and they said, you know, after listening to that, they've made sure that they've put 20 minutes of their time to get out in nature to help their own mental health. But also, if you look after nature, nature looks after us, you know. So this is real impact, which I've seen, and it's really hard to measure that impact. But when people are coming up to me saying that, it's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that question of empowerment is really interesting, and also seeing how you empower celebrities themselves to go on and do further climate work. Like, I'm thinking about how Ellie Goulding was involved with WWF at COP26, and now she did kind of nature as an artist, and she really seems to be like so deep into the nature world that it's nice that you provided almost like an easy entry into that.
Yeah, and Ellie is an amazing example. You know, she's a UNEP ambassador. She's done so much within the climate space, and people can relate to her. Ellie's not a scientist, but she's genuinely intrigued about creating and making sure there's solutions within the space. And, you know, she goes to the COPs. She really has a strong voice within those sectors as well. And people do listen to her. And she went to Colombia last year to see some jaguar traps. And that was related to our Forest Pathways report, which came out. And that shed significant light on that report, particularly in traditional media, but also on social media. And, you know, that journey has continued for her to get involved with the COP last year in Dubai, and she always gets involved in terms of the other COPs as well. So everything is like connected, and she's such an authentic voice, Ellie is, within the space, and you can just see how passionate she is about climate and nature, because it's at the front of her social media pages, but she's so open about it in traditional media as well.
And it's a good way to get those reports out there, because it's so hard to get those reports to kind of go beyond the research sector, because they're not that engaging, they're long, they have specific scientific language. But if you can have someone that kind of carries it forward for you, that must be massively helpful.
Yeah, massively helpful. And like I said before, these reports are very, very confusing for me and long, and I'm no scientist, so I can't really comment on the scientific data, but my God, like, yeah, if you have somebody fronting a report who is well loved and trusted, it helps a ton in terms of communicating what people can do on the back of that. So yeah, voices like Ellie Goulding, Sir David Attenborough, all of those individuals are huge for us as an organisation.
And can you tell me, if you're allowed, if there are any upcoming campaigns or projects that you're excited about at WWF?
So we have several exciting campaigns in the pipeline, especially in the autumn period. But unfortunately, I can't speak about the details just yet because they're under embargo. But I suppose the one which I can speak about loosely is a report, and a big report which is coming out called the Living Planet Report, which will be released in October this year. The Living Planet Report, if you don't know what it is about, it's a comprehensive study of trends in global biodiversity. And it just looks at the health of the planet. It's WWF's big flagship report. In the last report, the last report wasn't very positive in terms of the big stat, but in 2022, it was revealed that global wildlife populations have plummeted by 69% on average since the 1970s, which is just an unbelievably shocking rate. And, there will be an updated percentage in the next report. And it's my job to try and onboard celebrities and influencers to communicate this very academic and scientific paper in a way that the general public can understand and also take action. But it is such a stark stat. It's unbelievable. And people just can't wrap their heads around it. And we need to find people who can communicate that in the best way possible. And we're very lucky as an organisation to have a wonderful set of ambassadors and high-profile personalities and influencers who support us. And many of them are experts within that sector itself. So I'll be looking to potentially work with people who are very good communicators in terms of nature and climate issues within that period. But unfortunately, Izzy, I can't talk about the big exciting one because it's under embargo, but you'll see it. You'll see it around in October. There's lots going on in October. There's a 2-week period, which I think I might need a 2-month holiday after, to be honest.
A big nap.
Yeah, a big nap would be great, actually. Wouldn't mind a nap now.
That's really cool, though, to have such a central figure. I guess it must be difficult making it accessible for everyone. I think hearing something like 69% of wildlife has been lost is shocking, but it's very hard to know what that means. I think it's very hard to, especially coming from the UK, which has one of the worst biodiversity rates in the world. I think we maybe don't understand loss of nature that well because we've already lost our nature quite significantly.
Yeah, people just see the UK as this green and pleasant land, when in reality, I think it's the bottom 10% of biodiversity in the world. And these figures are just absolutely unbelievable. People just see, like I said, that green and pleasant land and think, oh, everything's swell in the UK, when in fact, no, it isn't. And I think Wild Isles, the series which we did with RSPB, which was on BBC, really shed light on that. And particularly the Save Our Wild Isles episode, which looked at the communities actually making a difference. That was a huge thing for us. And that was Sir David's first time doing a UK nature documentary. And that's
crazy.
Insane. It's insane, right? Like, he hasn't done a UK nature documentary. And I can remember speaking to my ex-boyfriend about it, and he was like, I didn't realise how amazing the UK was in terms of its nature. And I was like, yes, you can get orcas in Scotland, you can get orcas in Northern Ireland, you can go and see the puffins. There's so much nature in the UK, and I don't think, there's lots of us who do appreciate it, but a lot of us don't appreciate it. But then we need to make sure that everything is accessible for communities as well throughout the UK. So that's also a big mission of my own, is making nature as accessible as possible for all communities.
Well, I think the thing is we just don't see it
Like, we really don't, because stuff like media and programming isn't UK focused about UK nature. It's like you're not gonna have your eyes open or be aware to things. Like, I saw you guys went to the Solent recently and were looking at seagrass, and like that's where I grew up and where I'm from, and I was like, I didn't even know we had seagrass projects down there.
It's insane, actually, and you didn't like. I thought it would be really, really easy, actually. So yeah, Izzy, we went to a Project Seagrass site in the Isle of Wight, and we were harvesting seagrass seeds with some wonderful high-profile supporters of ours and ambassadors, so including Kedar Williams-Sterling from Sex Education, Amber Anderson from Peaky Blinders, Haroon Motor from Muslim Hikers, David Garrido from Sky News, and some others who were helping us on the day, harvest these seagrass seeds. And my God, Izzy, when I say it was difficult, it's so difficult to see. And these guys are doing it like over 2 weeks. And then, our WWF money is going towards that and, in terms of that conservation work. But hopefully over the next couple of years, we'll find a way of making that a little bit bigger. And so they can harvest more, because it's such a difficult process. And seagrass is so vital in the fight against climate change. And, I think it captures carbon 35 times more faster than rainforest, but it helps marine life in that area. And we've got the projects in the Isle of Wight and North Wales, and then in Scotland. In Scotland, we also have the Firth of Forth in terms of reintroducing oysters into the Firth of Forth, which we haven't seen oysters in the Firth of Forth for 100 years. So all these projects, I suppose people don't associate WWF as a whole to UK conservation projects, but we're there, we're present, we're doing good.
That's so cool. I also really love oyster regeneration projects because it's so cool how quickly they work. I think there's a estuary in Kent that uses them, and it's been massive in like depolluting their space. And then because it's in Kent, they sell the oysters to like really bougie London restaurants because they're like, these are Kentish oysters that have been harvested earlier, like today.
Oh, wow. I'll have to check it out. We definitely don't harvest the ones in the Firth of Forth because they were extinct. Just to put that out there, we are not selling them to restaurants. No oysters and champagne.
Yet.
No, Izzy, no.
I know we're like giggling now, but working in the environmental sector can be a hard sector to work in, like just the constant depressing facts. I mean, there's glimmers of good news and regeneration, and hopefully that balance will tip as time goes by, and it's going to become more and more of a regenerative, fun, exciting, less depressing industry to work in. But for now, with things being as dire as they are politically, with like lack of policy and pressure, I guess, what drives your passion for the environmental causes, and how do you stay motivated? How do you kind of look after yourself and stop yourself from feeling burnt out or tired or, I don't know, futile?
Yeah, I suppose I'll go to the burning out part first. Get into nature. I think nature is such a powerful tool, and I'm sure you recognise this, and many listeners will probably recognise this as I do, but we are part of nature. We're not apart from it. So getting into nature, if you're feeling overwhelmed, go for a walk. Get into nature, get into your park. If you're lucky enough to have a garden, plant some seeds in the garden, go and see some friends, go and speak to some like-minded people who you can lean on. It is very daunting, this industry and this sector, particularly to work in. When I first joined WWF, I can remember feeling quite overwhelmed after coming back from Scotland at the COP26. I can remember just feeling this a sense of being so overwhelmed with happiness and joy that I'd spent some amazing time with like-minded individuals and scientists who are doing such amazing things and being so encouraged. And then on the flip side, seeing not as much action as I wanted. And COP always falls on my birthday as well, unfortunately for me. And I can remember coming back, I went down to my friends in Ramsgate, and I can remember them just saying, I was like, oh, how did it go? It looked amazing. And just me saying, I just don't know how I feel. Like, I just feel this sense of dread, but then enthusiasm because, and you know what? It's the young people who are making me have that hope for our world, really, and the Indigenous people and the young people and the communities who are really making a difference, and also the scientists. And, I do believe without hope, what's the point? I always believe we've got to hope and we've got to keep going. So yeah, I think getting into nature is really, really important, whether that's just a 10-minute break. If you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, get into nature, go for a walk, do something, speak to your friends. And if that's too hard, listen to something on YouTube, which is of nature. Like, think outside the box in that sense. And it's not as accessible for many people.
So since your transition into the environmental industry, what is the most surprising thing that you learned?
I've learned a lot, I suppose. Fashion and the environmental industries are very different, I do have to say. But I suppose one surprising aspect, and I suppose it's not that surprising, is the power of community action. And, it's not that surprising, but seeing firsthand, like I just said, the work, what we do in the ground internationally and in the UK has just made me even more passionate about the cause. And I didn't think that was actually quite possible before, but I've witnessed the commitment and the passion of people, the scientists, the conservationists, the celebrities and staff who I all work with. And it's those individuals, those communities and teams coming together and dedicating their energy and expertise to make a real world difference. And seeing the growing awareness and empathy and action taken by people from all walks of life over the globe. I saw that on the Restore Nature Now March. All of those NGOs, we may not see eye to eye sometimes in terms of everything, but we were stood there side by side with that Restore Nature March, all asking for the same thing, to put nature on the agenda. And, this shared determination and, I suppose, creating a better future for both nature, climate and humanity, it just really, really does inspire me. And I suppose it is surprising. I just didn't think I could get more passionate about nature, but here I am, and I do hope that we do bring our world back to life as such over the next 10 years, 3 years. 3 years would be great, actually.
I think that's something I always try and tell people is it's not about finding one solution. It's about thinking like, what are you good at? What do you love? And what can you easily get involved in? Because the solution is everyone being a little bit involved. Like, I think that sometimes we think there's an idea that you have to dedicate your life or your career to the environmental cause, but actually like there might be something you can get involved in at the weekend. There might be some kind of rewilding project that you can get involved in locally. And actually, if the entire population just did like a little weekend project, little monthly bit of volunteering, the power of that is enormous versus feeling so pressured that you have to change your entire life that you then do nothing. So my final question for you today is for someone who is listening to this, who works in the cultural sector, but not environmental specific, and they want to make that shift into something that combines culture and climate. What advice would you give them?
I suppose for the people who are kind of aiming to go into the same role as mine or something like it, the biggest thing is building a diverse skill set. My job is really, really, really specific, and you need to be able to blend lots of different things. So, a passion for the course, but with an expertise like kind of on communication and relationship building. Go out, network, keep updated and connected, and never stop learning. And always think about creative collaborations and storytelling, because that is so, so vital for us in the climate fight. Storytelling is like the biggest thing, I believe. And, I'm lucky in my job to be able to work with celebrities and high profile people to align themselves with storytelling pieces, because stories inspire action at the end of the day. And, alongside this, you need to be a people person. I come from the fashion industry, which is, that's where I began particularly. And it's not always known as the most kindest of industries, I would say. But throughout my time in the fashion industry, throughout my time when I used to work in music for a record label or for a record shop, I was always kind. And that kindness, I still get comments on it today from people. I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but please don't underestimate the power of kindness, because that will get you so far. It's unbelievable. And you're very lucky if you're thinking about going into the environmental sector, because it is the most kindest sector in the world. What's more kinder than people who want to save the planet?
So if anyone wants to keep updated with your work, where can they find you? What are your social handles?
I would say to go to my Instagram, but my Instagram is very curated and it has a mix of my life. So maybe LinkedIn. And I was going to say a particular word in terms of LinkedIn, but go to LinkedIn, you can see what I get up to at WWF there. So just search my name, Siobhan Bailey-Turner, and it'll come up my page. It should anyway. Otherwise, just follow WWF UK on Instagram and social media channels.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Siobhan, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
I love talking to Siobhan today and hearing about her journey from entertainment to WWF and how she's using the power of celebrity to amplify climate action. Her passion for making the environment accessible and engaging is really inspiring. If you enjoyed today's episode, you can find links to Siobhan's work in the show notes. Your support for this independent podcast really keeps it going. Every like, share and comment helps us to reach more listeners. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe to the next episode. We have more amazing guests lined up who are each adding something unique to the climate conversation. See you next time.